Welcome back to the third ever McPhie Media Podcast. Today I'm joined by my co-host Hayden.
As always.
And our special guest today, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So Matt, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself? So who are you and what do you do?
So I am a media production lecturer. I also teach games design. And then in the background I also run my own business.
Ooh. So can you tell us a bit more about your business and what you guys do?
Absolutely. So I set up a business always been doing it, but last month we officially limited the company. So it's what's called a metaverse media company, which sounds a bit bougie and brand new. But essentially you might have heard of cryptocurrency and all of that kind of jazz. Now I work within the metaverse, so I'll do what's called metaverse cinematography and video editing for that kind of content. So you might have heard of, for instance, CryptoVoxels or Sandbox or maybe Somnium Space. Now we do kind of video content throughout those.
So how did you get into that industry? Like what put you in the VR space?
Weirdly enough, about 4 years ago we were on Steam, and as what you do when you're kids, you go on to kind of games and you try out new games every week to see what's good, what's bad. And we were just scrolling through Steam and one came up which was called Somnium Space. And we dropped into it and we met this gentleman called Arthur who runs Somnium Space, and he kind of explained everything. It was really surreal because it's a VR experience, but also you can do it on your computer. We met him and it was like we're having a conversation with the creator of this game.
Yeah.
And back then, obviously, metaverse coin term has been quite recent.
Yeah.
So back then, there was no metaverse. It was just this was a game to us. And we started doing some videos for them. And for us, it was like, this is not the easiest content we've ever produced, but easy in the sense of, like for instance, YouTube. You don't treat YouTube as a proper job, or a lot of people don't until it becomes a real job. And with this, you're sitting in your bedroom, like what you're doing here with OBS. You're setting up OBS, you're clicking record, and then you're doing what you would do when you play a video game.
Yeah.
And so it's surreal to get paid to do that, but it pays quite well.
Yeah. So what has been your experience with media as a whole?
I started kind of my media journey when I was about 13 or 14, and I was doing weddings, so I've probably done about 20 weddings now.
Is that filming or photography?
Yeah, so I've done both. So I'll do cinematography or I'll do photography for wedding. The first one I did was in 2009. I think I was only about 14, 15. And I went there and they paid me 150 quid, which at the time was a lot of money.
Yeah.
I snapped all the photos, I gave them out on SD card, I didn't even edit them, I just gave it over and they were happy, because for them 150 quid is a lot cheaper than paying 3 or 4 grand for someone to do it professionally.
Yeah, that's what I think I've been looking into that as well, because I do quite a lot of photography. I have quite a few mentors that have been teaching me since I was really young, and one of them was charging me 600 quid for a wedding, and I was just in awe of how much that is. But for me,
I would charge way more than that now. So the last wedding I did a video for, I probably charged about £1,500. Yeah, and that's one day's work. And I had one wedding where I did 2 in one day. So I did 2 weddings in one day. I did the videography for one in the morning, and then I drove over to the other side of Northampton, did the photography for another wedding in the evening, and then went back and did the wedding party for the other wedding in 9 o'clock at night.
When you do the filming, do you just get the wedding, or do you get after shots?
So I do it as a promotional thing. So I won't record for instance the audio of the day. I will go for 3 tracks and 3 sections. So I'll do the morning of a wedding where the girls are getting dressed up, they're doing the makeup. Then I'll do the wedding, and then I will do the nighttime stuff. And it kind of cuts into a really nice kind of promotional set of 3 different tracks throughout the day. It ends up being like a 10-minute video.
Yeah.
Realistically, if I do a wedding, I'll do the wedding one day, I'll edit the next day. So say it's £1,200, that's 2 days work. Yeah.
They're quite easy to edit as well,
Yeah.
because it's just basic clips.
That's it, it's just cutting.
Sequence.
They don't want anything crazy, they're not wanting anything sped up. It's just getting it in the right order and telling the story of their day. Because that's all they want, really. Obviously, with weddings, there is a lot of stress, though. One of the weddings I did recently, I haven't done one for a year or so because I'm busy with work, but an SD card snapped in my camera, and that's something that can happen. So it's always good to have some tweezers on you, and always have 4 or 5 SD cards just in case. Add a spare camera if you can.
So when did you go from being a kid with a computer to being a professional teaching like students and stuff?
I think you're always, to an extent, a kid with a computer, no matter how old you get. I'm 25 now, 26 this year. I've been teaching for almost 5 years, so it's been quite a while. But I think you always, to an extent, feel like that kid with a computer until you're a kid with a computer making money. And that's when you become a professional. So it's when you start turning, a profit to an extent. It's when you start getting constant clients. So you'll be in a position where, at your age, you'll be doing a job for a client and then you'll never hear from them again. They might not even give you any kind of feedback as to what you've done. And I've been through that. I've felt that. And then you'll start getting people that will message you, or a lot of work for us is through Twitter. So they'll just DM us and go, I've got this budget, what do you want to do? Yeah. And to be a good professional freelancer, you do the jobs that you want to do. You don't shoot. Well, sometimes you have to do it to be paid, but you're better off doing jobs you're going to enjoy than doing the jobs that you're thinking this is going to be rubbish. There's no point in doing that, because the reason you work as a freelancer is to choose your hours, choose what you're doing, and choose the content you're creating. And they're the best kind of clients, are the ones that say, I want this many videos a month, do what you want. Yeah.
Side question for you. So when you were just starting out with all of this, did you have a part-time job to keep you?
Yeah, so I've had lots of part-time jobs over the years, doing lots of different things, and a lot of those I ended up really kind of binning off or doing work for them that was media related. So if I worked in a pub, I'd do a pub video for them and they'd pay me the money for it. Now, I did it in a way that I was running a business at the time. So I was at university, I was running my business. And then obviously I started teaching. And so I've always worked full time and also done it on the side as well. Now it's getting to the point where something has to give. So I either need to make the decision on, am I going to continue teaching, or am I going to go full pelt into metaverse media content?
Yeah. So with the business and everything, what made you choose that over something more like mainstream, like directing or like big camera rigs and stuff like that?
Think about it this way. So you've got the industry, or quote unquote industry, and what that means. Now for me, I want to be a big fish in a small pond. I don't want to be a small fish in a big pond, because you're never going to make money that way. It's really hard, and I'm going to be honest, it's really hard to get into the industry, whether that's media industry, games industry, or whatever you want to get into. However, it's really easy to get into a niche part of that industry. So, for instance, when I started TikTok, when did I start TikTok? 2020. So in the period where it was full on lockdown, I was getting up to 15 million views, per video. Whereas, now if I went ham on TikTok now, I probably would get 1,000 views, 2,000, 10,000. I wouldn't get what I was getting then. So it's picking your battles as to where you produce content and who you produce content for. Because, for instance, if you're on a film set, you're one of 500, 600 people on that film set. Now, if I'm producing content bespoke for a client, I am their number one priority, because I am the one they go to every single time for the content that they want. Now, you can be on a film set and earn okay money doing what you love, but no one will ever really know your name unless you're, the big shot directors. Because let's face it, give me a single cinematographer that you know by name. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, give me a single editor that you know by name.
Hayden McPhie.
Yeah. There we go. So you can't think of anyone. Whereas if I said think of a director that you know, you'll automatically know a couple. Yeah, and directing is hard, and it's hard to get into that. And there's not that many people who traditionally are film and screen trained that go into directing. Yeah, I bet you couldn't even really think of a scriptwriter. Yeah, and that's it. But I could ask you how many actors you want to know, or how many actors influence you, and you'll probably say quite a few. And this is what these people are. They're the forgotten heroes of the media industry. And they're the ones that are working really, really hard to make these films, and yet, you know, we don't know their names. We don't know anything about them other than the fact they're okay with the camera, or brilliant at editing, or fantastic at sound design. I would rather be the person that's good at all of them and can make a living from that and enjoy it, than one person that is having to work on a film set as a cinematographer, doing the same thing every single day.
I've said that for quite a while now, that I don't think I could work on a big film set like in Hollywood. I think I'd get too bored.
That's it.
Because you don't have as much I don't think you have any creative freedom really. It's all like you do it by the books.
Yeah.
Whereas you kind of want to go.
Yeah, that's what I'd prefer. Like, I want to be like a big shot director, but obviously it's such a niche role. You don't really know directors until they're in like a big mainstream kind of film like Star Wars or Marvel, that kind of genre.
Absolutely, and it's a really niche market to get into. Directing is one of those things where you've got to be able to convey a room really well, and you need to start from somewhere small. So start with some short films, and then see if actually directing is for you. Because for a lot of people, they hear the word director and they think, oh, this is that big amazing thing. But you know, I've directed music videos, I've directed short films, I've directed, you know, metaverse content, metaverse music videos, which are really interesting to do. You know, I've done events, I've done kind of anything you can think of, I've probably done it. And I do the process from start to finish, so that actually I'm really happy with it. Because the big thing about that is, in terms of like Hollywood vision, you might not like the film you've produced, but you have no say whether it, you know, for instance, Cats, have a look at that, and all of the actors hated it. Yeah, they hated their portrayal in it, but they had no say over that because it was the director's vision. That's what they wanted.
Yeah. So, why did you go into teaching specifically instead of like going full force in the business or full force at uni?
Absolutely. So at the time, I remember this exactly, you know, like it was yesterday. So it was 5 years ago. I was sat, and my partner, her dad lives in America. He works in America. So I'd left I'd just finished university. I'd been doing kind of a year's worth of running a business with a friend, essentially. And it was not in what I was interested in. It was in web design. And I was helping it along, but nothing ever seemed to kind of work, and it wasn't really my vision as to where the company should have gone. And so I was in America, and I sat with my partner, and she said, "You're unhappy. What do you want to do for a living?" And I sat there and I thought, well, I've been teaching my entire life, regardless of what I was doing. When I was at university, I was teaching people how to video edit. My background in terms of so I was in a youth club called the Boys Brigade. I don't know if you'd have ever heard of it. It's a Christian youth club. I'm not Christian myself, but it happened to be the youth club in my area, a bit like Scouts. But I was part of that, and from a young age, I was always teaching people how to do things, whether that was skills or a bit of camera work or whatever. I was always teaching people how to do that, so it seemed like a logical step. Now, my degree is in media production and moving image. So I thought I didn't want to teach at a secondary school. A college is a place where I can treat people like adults. My big philosophy is, if I treat you like an adult, you'll treat me with respect, rather than the teachers that will treat you like a child. I am Mr. Wood, you know. From day one, I am Matt. You know, you are exactly I will treat you as my equal until you give me a reason not to. So teaching for me was a way that I could give my skills onto other people, so that they could go off and do, you know, little things that I want to do. So it might have been I had one student who has gone off and worked on various sets like the Batman sets, etc. They've gone on to go and do that, and they've done some acting as well. I've had students, lots of students have gone off to university. Some of them have gone to go do cybersecurity, and a lot of them keep in contact with me as well to say, look, I'm here. Do you want me to come in and do a talk about this or this? And that's what it's about. It's about giving students experience. You don't do teaching for the pay. It's not glamorous. It's you are stretched within an inch of your life. It's worse in a school, but in a college, if staff members are off and they're sick, then you have to pick up that slack, and it's not a 9-to-5 job. Now, a lot of stigma around teaching is that we work 6 months of the year. Now, we do, in an extent, we work probably 8 months of the year fully in, and then but during that 8 months, we're working, 12 months worth of time, and then I'm doing kind of my business on top, which is why I'm going part-time, and because something has to give.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Batman. Have you seen the latest one?
I haven't. I've kind of, it's with time at the moment, time is very precious for me. I have literally last night I sat down and watched James Bond. That's how far behind I am with films at the moment.
I'm not massively into watching films, but our friend took me to see it, and the cinematography in that is amazing.
I've heard it's very dark and quite gritty, but I do need to see it.
There's one scene where I won't give you the specifics just because I don't want to ruin it for you, but there's water underneath him, and the lighting is just amazing because the water's like sort of orangey, and it's just an amazing scene to watch from someone who can sort of knows what goes into that.
Absolutely.
It's so cool, and doing this sort of thing has changed the way I look at films.
Yeah, it does ruin films to an extent. You sit there and you think, oh, I would have done that better. I would have done it this way, or why have they done it like that, or they should have added a light here, or they should have edited it from a different direction, or for instance, especially when it comes to continuity, I'm really I struggle to watch films if the continuity is bad. And a lot of, sometimes in terms of Marvel, they'll throw stuff in that doesn't make sense. But yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone or people like us who are getting into the industry, or people who want to get into the main industry or the side industry or whatever?
I think for being a freelancer, I would say take as many opportunities as you can. Now, I don't mean do work for free, because that's not the best kind of value of your time. Now, if it's something that's worth doing for free and it's giving you a real experience, like going and working with Screen or Fence or something like that and doing a bit of work, well, that might be worth it. But if you're going into a bakery and doing a shoot for them, don't do it for free.
Yeah, we made that mistake already. I won't drop the business's name, but we went in and we done an advert for a VR shop, and we both spent hours. I went in and had a meeting with them. We planned it. He sort of gave us what he wanted in the advert.
Yep.
We said, we're going to do it for free just because you're our first client, proper client. Yeah, we knew them, and I spent a lot of hours editing because my first one was not what I liked, which I was fair enough. So I'd done him another one, and then I had to add things onto that. And then when I sent in the end product, he just didn't reply.
Yeah.
And we both just thought, wow,
and that's someone you know. Yeah, so imagine if that's someone you don't know and you had no prior relationship with, you're being aired by someone you know, and you've spent maybe 10, 15 hours, maybe more, on a free piece of content. So you're not even breaking even. And that's the thing, you'll really want to kind of, I don't know how to explain this, but you need to value your time. So it's not in the sense of, for instance, hourly rate. It's about how long do you think this is going to take, how much do you think it's worth, whether you're making £100 an hour or £10 an hour, is it worth it to you? Because there will be jobs that you don't want to take, and that's where you charge £100 an hour. Yeah, the jobs you love, you do £10 an hour, and then you slowly rise. But it is easier to charge people more at the start, right, and reduce your rates than it is to start low and bump up.
Because we were talking about that. We were speaking about how much we're going to put back in and things like that. And one of the big things for me was I'm going to have to make more than I would at a night at work, because if I miss out on that night of work, I need equivalent, if not more, to keep me on track with everything.
Yeah.
So that's something we've struggled a little bit with, is the finance sort of thing. Like,
you're also in a low socioeconomic area, and that basically means that people don't earn as much, and there's a lot of poverty, even in the sense of that you might not see it, but there's a lot of an unemployment rate, and so people are willing to pay less. So you've got to look at, for instance, say you're working a night, and how much would you earn on an average night?
about £45.
£45. So if I told you that I worked 2 hours and I could make up to £2,000 with a business partner, so maybe £500 an hour, well, now my time is valued at like 10 times yours working in that environment. So if you can get one wedding a month, right, and you do one wedding and you charge £1,000 for that wedding, well, you're going to make more, right, doing that one day a month than you are working 30 days in a kitchen or whatever you're doing. And that's where you've got to value your time, because you could then spend 30 days editing those photos leisurely in bed if you really wanted to, but you are still kind of valuing your time. So I've got a friend who works for, I won't name the company, but it's a Minecraft hosting company. And he explains his job as, I sit in my pants all day and I play Minecraft while messaging people on social media. That is their job, yeah. They are paid a lot more than I am in terms of hourly wage for me in the college to play Minecraft all day and make money from it. And so you do the thing you enjoy, not what you feel like you have to do, because if you enjoy it, money will come after that. And for instance, the crypto game is a really dangerous place at the moment. So recently, me and my business partner lost £5,000. Yeah, it was stolen from our account. It's not like a traditional bank account. You can't just get that money back. Yeah, it's gone forever. Now that's a tax write-off, but I now need to make £100,000 over the next year for that to have been worth it. So it's something you've also got to be very careful with, is your finances, especially when you're in a crypto space where someone can hack your computer and steal all your money. It's dangerous. It's the Wild West currently.
So have you got any questions for us? So we've been talking to you. Why don't you talk?
Yeah, absolutely. So why media? Because obviously, Jay, you started 2 years ago. You decided media. You started here, and then you decided, I'm actually going to make a change, go into the army. Why have you come back to media?
Because it's always been like a kind of like underlying consistency throughout my life. Like growing up, I was doing like the lighting, like rigs for the school production at primary school, and then secondary school I was doing the same thing, but I moved on to a bit of sound, and then it kept going, and then obviously I came here and did it here. I was like, if I'm enjoying it this much, I don't know who said it, but it was like, if you find something you enjoy and do it as work, you never work a day in your life. And I was like, if I'm doing this, it's not work, so like I'll do this, it'll be brilliant. And then I went to the army, came back, and I was like, I enjoyed that course. I enjoyed learning like behind the scenes and seeing what happens. So I'll just go back and see what I can do. And then, yeah, it's just been consistent. So I was like, I'll carry on doing it.
That's it. And you'll take those influences from the army and the regiment and push that forward, because it gives you a working dynamic and forces you into routine. And if you can do that, and you can do that in a business sense, and regiment what you're doing each day. So you might, on a Monday, you might be on a shoot. On a Tuesday, you might be editing. If you can stay in that and consistently do that, because it's not about earning, £1,000, £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 a month. It's about making that over the course of a year. So you might do all of your work over 6 months and do nothing the rest of the year. Or you can, while you're young, do it as much as possible to be able to earn as much as you can while you're young and you can, to put it away and expand your business. That's it.
So for me, I got into this media like really young. So as I said before on this podcast, I had a really big influence in my life teaching me photography and showing me my way around a camera since I was 8 or 9, so really young. And then ever since then, I've always been interested in cameras and watching YouTubers edit videos and things like that, and then came to a point where our church took live streaming really seriously and spent a lot of money on it. So I sort of joined the live stream team, and then from there have stepped up a lot more and got, a lot more used to cameras. And then someone saw how much I liked it and actually gifted me a camera, which was amazing. And then I decided to give my first short film a shot, directed, edited and produced it by myself, and fell in love. And yeah.
That's it, and that's what you have to do. You have to start with doing something for free and enjoy it. Especially, a lot of my influences come from the church. Not that I'm religious, I never was. It just happened to be that environment that was free at the time for me to use as a kid. And a lot of kind of creativity comes from that. Even, regardless of your mindset and your belief, you can still use those places as a great way to make friends and to be able to, like for you, for instance, live streaming. Well, that's a fantastic thing that you've only had the opportunity because you went to church. And that's a bizarre thing to say, really, because I think the church, in an extent, is dying out for a lot of young people. Young people don't want to be going there because it's not seen as cool, hip or trendy. And you don't necessarily need to be religious to go and be in that environment. You can just be someone who's interested in the music or the technology that they're using. And it's a really kind of interesting place. A lot of young people, I think, that are creative come from either the church or they come from a family of people that are really interested in media.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that we were talking about with some of the leaders of each team. And we were saying, like, it's such a good place to have, like, as a training ground and then move up. Like, I did start on live stream when COVID happened. And then I started doing that, got to the point where I was leading it at one point, me and the other guy doing it. And then I stepped down from the live stream team, moved on to sound because the person that was doing it before moved on. So I was like, you know what, I'll give it a shot, it looks fun.
And then I stood up.
And then you stood up into my place. But going into that sound bit, I was like, it looks complicated. Like, I've never, you've got all them little buttons on it. It looks so complicated. And then I got to do it. It's actually like, oh, it's pretty much just that you just twist things and push them up. And it was such a good training ground because, like, having people that know what they're doing is such a better thing. And then, like, branching out into different places. Like, we're at the court cube. We're using their theatre for, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. And we got to talk to their technical team and see, like, the sound desk cost like 25 grand. And we were like, such an amazing, like, opportunity to work with these professionals, and, like, it was all for free. You didn't have to do anything for it. Just go and turn up, and it's great.
But this is the big thing, and this is kind of as a closing statement. Is earlier we were talking about when did I become a professional, and it's very much, I like to use the philosophy of fake it till you make it, because if you treat it as if you're a professional from day one, well, even though you might have kind of a feeling like you're not, if you treat it as if you are and you convey yourself as a professional, then you are one. Something you'll learn very quickly is no one is a professional. No one is truly professional because they will have their tantrums, they'll moan, and you can't be professional all the time, though you might try to put your professional hat on. To an extent, it's always fake it till you make it. If you go into a room, so about 6 months ago, I had a meeting with my business partner, and I'd just got in from work. I had 2 minutes, and I didn't know what the meeting was about. It was a client setup, and I ended up in a board meeting with 6 American board members to talk about exactly what they wanted, their vision, their brand. I had 2 minutes to prepare. Now, if you go in there and you act all hesitant and you're panicked, what's going to happen is you're going to stress out. They're going to realise. Whereas if you speak to them and chat to them and listen to what they're saying, what they want, and then if they say something like, for instance, so Americans really love the British accent. So one of them said, oh, we really love how you command the room with your British accent. Well, I've got it then. That's me going, I am in control of this meeting at this point, and therefore I am the professional in this scenario. So I could say, what do you want? how much do you want to spend? Let's go. And that's how you have to treat these situations. The first thing you need to ask people is, what is their budget, right? If they mess you around and say, oh, I want you to re-edit this. Oh, sorry, this isn't within the scope of our original agreement, yeah? Let's rediscuss this for an added price. Well, then people stop getting as picky as they are, yeah, because they're having to pay more.
So has there been like an overall project that you either looked forward to doing or looked back on and been like, that was my favourite project?
I've done a few over the years. Professionally, actually, my favourite project is different to the favourite project that I've done. So I did a project here a couple of years ago, which was a music video, and it was a bizarre one because it was about a 7-minute track.
The one with the tank.
Yeah. So, being in a college, you have a fantastic example of having lots of equipment and lots of access. Now, part of the music video, I wrote a treatment for it, and I was like, I want a tank for this scene. That would be great. And so I spoke to Paul Simpson, who's our technician here, and he was like, I might know a guy. I'll see if I can sort it. And we got someone to drive around a tank with the guitarist playing his guitar while the bloke's driving it around in the car park during the middle of a storm. So it was storm, like Brenda or something like that. I was flying a drone midway through a storm, while the drone was like flying here, there, and everywhere. And I had a migraine for 2 days after that shoot, but it was still an awesome shoot and something I'll never do again. Yeah. You know, how often can you say you've had someone drive a tank around your workplace while having, for instance, a student hanging out your car while you're driving and they're getting the shot they want to get? You know, you can't say that very often. Obviously, health and safety was set up correctly at the time, and the health and safety officer was there. So I was okay doing those things. I was opening up my boot and he was like kind of hanging out the window, strapped in, of course. And we did that. We got a wrestling ring in, and we had them full on wrestling. So we was throwing each other over the head. We had a bloke dressed up in makeup with drag all over his face, like full drag, being a ring girl. So he was dressed to the nines in a sexy outfit with a ring girl kind of thing. That was really cool and really fun to do. It was a nightmare to edit because it was probably 15 hours worth of footage, and I only had a 4-week timeline, so it was really quick turnaround. But for professional, I've really enjoyed some of the metaverse stuff I've done. So I did a project for an NFT project quite recently, and for them, we're doing, so for instance, you're enjoying short films. Now we're being paid, I don't know, £1,000 a video for a 60-second short film. Yeah, and that's split into 6 parts. So we're getting $6,000 or around that to do a set of short films. So I get to write it, I get to direct it, and then I get to do the cinematography while acting for that money. Yeah, and so that's a fantastic thing, and that's going to be a great project.
I have a question for you. If you're allowed to say, who is a client that you've worked for that you think we would know, or that you think the audience would know?
I've worked for a few I'm trying to think. So I've worked with a few charities. I've done work for Boris Johnson. That was interesting. I did some of his photography, probably when I was about 19. So Boris Johnson, Andrea Ledson, who's the other kind of candidate at the time. I've done work for British Blind Sport, who are a blind sport charity. I'm trying to think of who else has been interesting. Northampton Police, I've done work for them.
Have you done any content creators?
Not that you would know. And I've got NDAs signed with a few of them, or at the time I did. So, yeah, I try and keep away from content creators. There was a job I was going to do recently with, it was have you ever heard of Rec Room?
Yeah.
So it's a Rec Room YouTuber that had over 1 million, 1 million subscribers, and they messaged back, and because it was like £250 to £300 a video for them for a 10-minute video. And they messaged back and went, oh, you should maybe do some research into L cuts and J cuts. And what I'd done is I'd nested the sequence, which just basically means flattens it, so that I could put a full kind of level on their voice. So I had done loads all over the place, you know. It's editing 101. And so they hadn't looked at it properly, so they were like, oh, yeah, we don't really want to use you. And then about 2 weeks later, they contacted us again and was like, oh, it hasn't worked out with the other guy. We'd like to use you. And I was just like, no, I don't want to work with you because you're not looking at the content we're producing. If they give you a quote-unquote art test and do something like that, then they need to be able to understand what they're looking at. And if they can't understand what they're looking at, then you don't work with them.
Yeah. So on that kind of subject, what's like a bad experience you've had or the worst experience you've had in the industry?
Ooh, worst experience. I've had a few over the years. I mean, one of the worst experiences was definitely snapping that SD card at a wedding. I had to borrow tweezers from the bride's room to be able to try and pick it out my camera. Luckily, I had 2 cameras at the time, else I would have been so stressed. But that's pretty rough, especially as with a wedding. You are filming their big day. You get one chance at that. You can't go back and go, oh, sorry, can I just get a bit more footage for you? So that was pretty rough. I've worked with some not so nice people. On one film set I worked on, they thought they were the boss. They were amazing. And they were a runner. You know, they're not important in that sense, especially at that time. And if people act like that, you're just not going to work with them again. Yeah. And trying to think of other clients. Recently, I did some work with a client, and they only messaged us through Twitter, which I like to have a meeting with them through Discord. I deal with people all over the world, so it's not a case of, you know, sometimes I'm meeting with them at 2:00 in the morning, for instance, or 2:00 in the morning their time, so that they can accommodate for us. And this client would just refuse to have a meeting. They were like, no, you've got everything you need to do. You've got everything you need to see. And this is what I'll try and find one of the DMs that they sent us at the time. And we had to kind of pull our vision from that. Let me find it. This is what they sent for their video example. Yeah, I'll show the camera that. So that's what they gave us as their video content, and then we created it was like I won't go into too much detail, but a billboard basically with their NFTs looking up, and you know, you can't pull anything from that. It looks like a child scribbled, and so we created a whole video, and they turned around and was like, nah, that's not our vision, that's not what we wanted, and you're like, really? And then we did a new video which was a lot more cinematic, really cool. And then we sent it over to them. We said, oh, that's great. We'll get back to you soon. They never got back to us. They paid us already, so it didn't matter. They posted the video with different music. Now, we designed the music specially to have like drops when lights came on and stuff like that. And they'd put some like trap beats on it. And so it just didn't fit the vibe. Now, fine, they got, 100,000 views and, 40,000 retweets or whatever. But trust your professional and the person that you're getting this content for, because they're the ones that you're paying to make the content,
Quick question. You said you use Discord to talk to clients.
Yep.
Is there ever a barrier there? Because I find that quite a few people I know just don't have any idea about Discord.
So we will flip between Discord and Google Meets. If they are completely illiterate in terms of technology or IT illiterate, Google Meets is a really good one because you just click the link and then it's straight up. As long as they've got a camera and a microphone, it works. So yeah, have a look at Google Meets and you can send them in calendar invites.
Cool. So going forward, what is your plan moving forward?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I don't know. In all honesty, so we started the business, probably 5 months ago. We started properly trading 2 months ago, and we've gone heavy on it. So that £5,000 we lost was 2 months worth of work. Now, that sounds like a lot of money and not a lot of money. In a business sense, that's 2 months worth of money for two people, just working in the evenings. So in that sense, it's fantastic, especially at your age. £5,000 is a lot of money. Whereas for my age, it's in my head, I'm like, we'll make that back in 2 months. It's not an issue, or we'll make double that in 2 months. Now, when teaching will give is when the money that I'm making is substantially more than what I'm earning here. So I'm dropping down one day next year, and then each year I will reassess that, because I'm also doing my masters on top. Yeah, so I'm running a business, I'm teaching full time and doing a masters this year, and I fully renovated my house. Yeah, so I'm glutton for punishment in that sense.
Yeah. So I think we've got a question that we ask all our guests that come on the podcast. So if there's one person you can have on the podcast, or you would like to see on the podcast in the future, who would it be?
As in anyone, or
Anyone realistically.
Yeah, within reason, but anyone. Like I think we had Damien, we've had the hosts of Corby Radio, we've had like council members, the MP we've had.
Suggested to us.
Yeah, suggested to us. We haven't had them on yet.
No, that would be good. I'm trying to think, because I'm not that local. So someone that might be good is to try and contact Screen or Fans, because obviously that's a big local kind of hero in that sense. And it might also give you the opportunity to chat with them and find out if you can do some work with them.
I think we've actually been invited. They invited us to one of their things.
Yeah, they're doing a careers expo at the uni in Northampton.
Brilliant.
And they're doing.
Reached out to us, didn't they?
Yeah, they sent us a message saying, "Do you want to come have a look at this?" We're like,
Great. So yeah, try and get them on, because that way they're giving a good influence to a young fan base.
yeah, because did they not do the apprenticeship thing? I remember they
do
came
do
in,
one, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, they came in here and did a talk while I was here, saying once we're done with the course, we can go and do an apprenticeship with them. And it looks really good from what he was talking about. It looks like a really good opportunity.
That's it. You just have to check, because sometimes apprenticeships you don't learn, especially in media, you don't necessarily learn the right things. So you've got to be very careful in terms of apprenticeships in media production. You're better off going into a local studio and working with them.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast.
That's absolutely fine.
It's been great talking to you.
It's been good.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for having me.
No problem.
Cool.
See you
Goodbye.
guys next time.
Goodbye.